Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are going to be going over Unit 2, Lesson number 4, and that is soil. Now today's lesson has a lot of information in it that might not necessarily be recorded in your interactive notebook pages. So what we did was really take the main points for this lesson and put them in there. So you're going to be using some fill-in-the-blank information to fill in your interactive notebook pages for the day. So just kind of pay attention to what goes where, and if you have any questions, let me know. So today we're going to jump into talking about soil, and we're going to find out that soil is actually really important. It's not something that maybe you've given much thought to in the past, but without soil, there really could be no life on Earth. It is very important. So here are some different fun facts about soil. So it takes about 500 years to actually form 1 inch of soil, which is not a lot if you think about it, but it's an incredibly long time to make that. There's different types of soils, and different buildings can be created on different types of soils depending on, how much water they hold and how sturdy they are. And then different types of soils also will have different permeabilities, meaning some of them will hold water better than others. So it's just very interesting to talk about soil itself and how intricate it is and how different it can be. So just some characteristics of soil. Something called a regolith is the layer of rock and mineral fragments that cover almost all land as a result of weathering. And remember, weathering is just the breakdown of rock. Soil is the part that supports the growth of plants. Okay, so when we talk about soil, we are talking about the portion that supports plants. And there are different characteristics, or there are different horizons when we talk about soil. So anything from the O to the C horizon, and we'll define these horizons in just a minute, but anything from O to C is going to be regolith. And so that's the rock and the mineral fragments. And then the bedrock is going to be pure rock. So here's where we can see these horizons. So they have distinct layers going from top to bottom. But bedrock will be rock, and then everything above the bedrock will be considered regolith. So soil composition is made of a couple things. Number 1 is the mineral matter, that is just the broken down rock. Number 2 is the organic matter, also known as humus. Not the kind that you eat, so not the chickpea hummus, but it's just organic matter. And organic matter can be things like plants, the worms, the bacteria that live in the soil. 3 is air, and 4 is water. So a good soil is at least 50% mineral and organic matter. So more mineral and organic matter than the air and the water. So you guys have this pie chart in your notes that you'll be filling in. So soil consists of 25% air, 25% water, partially mineral particles, and then the rest is organic matter. And that organic matter can be organisms, roots, and humus. Here is a video that if you are not in the Zoom meeting, I highly suggest you go back and open your slides and watch. It will go over the soil profile horizons. Soil can have different textures. So soil has different particle sizes. Here up top, clay. Clay is the smallest particle. So it can hold water really well, and it's not very permeable. Sand is the largest, and sand is very porous, so water will run right through. And then you have silt as your intermediate. So the best texture for soil is going to be something called loam. And you see the loam typically sits in the very middle of this texture pyramid. And it's the best because it holds water, but it doesn't hold on to it too much. So it's permeable. It's kind of like the Goldilocks of soil textures. So loam will hold on to water so that the plants have enough time to take it up, but it doesn't get waterlogged. So it doesn't sit there and drown your plants. I don't know if you've ever heard somebody say that you can drown your plants, but you don't want to have too much water in the soil. You want it to stay for enough time that the organisms and the plants in the soil can get the water, but you don't want it to sit there. You want it to run through eventually. And loam is a good middle ground. So if we look at this here, you guys are probably thinking, well, what the heck is this triangle? on the screen. This is called a soil texture triangle. And if you know the percent composition of clay, silt, and sand, you will be able to determine the classification of the soil. So you can have a clay soil, you can have sandy clay loam, sandy loam, all kinds of different textures. And we are going to learn how to read one of these today. So basically what you do is anytime that you are given a percent composition of a soil, it has to add up to be 100%, right? You can't have just a partial percentage of soil. So you'll be given an example of a soil profile that has a certain percentage of each type of particle. So each type of clay, silt, and sand. And what you do is you find on each side of the pyramid where that percentage is, and then you follow the arrow. So let's say that we had a soil that was 60% clay. So we would come over to the clay side, and you'll always see where it says clay. And you would put your finger or your cursor on the 60%, and you would just draw a line over for 60%. Okay, so you just have to find the 60% and move over. And I'm going to show you guys how to do this in Google Slides, and it'll be really easy because there's a line feature that we can use. So let's say that it was 60% clay, and then we have, let's say, 30% silt. So we have 60% clay and 30% silt. Well, silt is over here on this side, and if we look, the arrow for silt goes down. So we would put our cursor on 30, and we would follow the arrow down, okay? Well, now if we had a 60% clay and a 30% silt, 60 and 30 make 90, so that means to add up to be 100, that means our sand would need to be 10%. So we'll come down here on our bottom of our triangle, which is where the silt is, and we will put our cursor on 10% silt, and we will follow this up at an angle as well. Okay, so if you were doing this on paper, you would draw a line and you would find where all of those lines intersect. And here what we're going to find is that they would all intersect at clay. And so the classification of that particular soil would be clay. And we're going to do some of these together. So here's just another example. I'll do one more on this video and we'll do more together in class. It says, what type of soil is made up of 20% clay, 40% silt, and 40% sand? So we'll come over here. At first, let's look for our clay. So it says 20% clay. So I'm going to find our 20% here, and I'm going to follow this over. So we know that our clay is along this line. 40% silt. Silt is on the right-hand side of the triangle. So here's silt right here. So here's 40. So I will follow that down. Remember, we have one line from 20 over, one line from 40 down, and then 40% sand. Our sand is on the bottom. We'll find 40% on the bottom, and we'll follow it up. Okay, now we have to find where all those intersect, and they intersect right here in the middle at medium loam. So on an independent practice or a test, you would tell me the texture of that soil is called medium loam. And I'm going to put these examples up here, and if you want to stop and try those yourself, you can, but I'm going to move on just for time's sake. So there are different formation factors when it comes to soil. Number one is the parent material, and this is the source of the mineral matter. And then time as well is a formation factor. So the longer it forms, the thicker the soil will be. Parent material is basically just what kind of rock is being weathered down and serving as kind of like the basis for your soil. Also, climate has the greatest effect. So similar soils can be made in the same climate, even if they have different parent materials. So your climate is a huge factor in your soil formation. Organisms will aid in fertility. So plants are going to be the main source of organic matter for soils. And then also microorganisms, they can perform decomposition, and they also fix nitrogen for us. And then burrowing animals will also mix things up in the soil. So on this side of the example, if you guys have ever seen the earthworms that come up, out of the soil, they will actually help water flow through because they have all of these interconnecting tunnels in the soil. The slope will affect it. So is it steep or flat? So steeper slopes will equal greater erosion. So we won't have as thick soils on steeper slopes. And then in flat areas, there's little erosion and drainage. So we can have thicker soils, but also different types of soils. And then a soil profile will show the characteristics from the surface down. And we need to know about soil horizon. So each individual zone. So this is the other main thing we need to know about today. So there are basic soil horizons. At top we have the O horizon, and O stands for organic. These are where there are rotting plants on the forest floor. So these are the things that are basically just the organic matter that's fallen. If you think of like leaves and brush on top of the soil, that's going to be your O horizon. Your A horizon are the rotting plants and finely decomposed rock. The B horizon is decomposed rock and some rotten plants closer to the A horizon. So any plants that are in our B horizon are going to be closer to the top. Horizon C is slightly decomposed rock, and then on the bottom where we have R, you can see this as R or B because it is bedrock, but that's just the rock that is not soil. It's kind of like our base. And here's an example of an A, a B, and a C horizon. So our A horizon is just the topsoil, okay? We've got our humus layer, which is organic. We've got mixed and mineral organic layers, and then some organic materials, as well as clay and calcium. Our B horizon is our subsoil. So this is where we've got kind of things like iron accumulation and accumulation of mechanically and chemically downwashed material. I'm not super concerned about you guys knowing that. Again, the major things for soil are going to be understanding the basics of the horizons, and then also reading the soil texture triangles. And then the C horizon is the regolith, and this is the mineral material or the mineral layer from the parent material. And then you've got your B or D horizons, which are your bedrock. So we've got our A, our B, and our C horizons. Again, A is the topsoil. It's got a lot of the organic matter, a lot of insects, fungi, microorganisms. B is the subsoil, and it consists of clay particles washed out of the A horizon. So when it rains, clay will get washed from the A horizon into the B horizon. And then the C horizon is mostly just the weathered parent material, so the rock. Soil can be eroded away, so it can be washed away, and that's really detrimental because we need soil for our agriculture, we need soil for the crops and for other organisms. You know, we could not live and exist on Earth without soil. So water is a really big factor when it comes to soil erosion, but so are we. So human activities remove vegetation that covers soil, and without that cover, the soil is easily eroded. So this picture here is just farm machinery that is tilling up cropland, and what that does is kind of like it disturbs the topsoil and it's easily eroded away. So they come through and they till it up, and if a big wind comes by or there's a big rainstorm or something, that topsoil can get easily eroded away, and that is not a good thing. Okay, so again, the major takeaways from today are going to be our different soil horizons and also learning how to read those soil texture triangles.